The devastating bacterial vine disease, PSA, had hit the kiwifruit industry hard by November 2012. It proved hard to manage and even more difficult to contain. Stuart Kay from Plant and Food Research explains efforts being made by the industry to understand and control the disease.
The New Zealand scientific community was quite well prepared for PSA. We had a number of projects already underway on PSA, based over in Italy where it was already a problem, and we'd had those projects underway for a number of years. What that means is that we were able to respond very rapidly when it was found in New Zealand, and it was that preparedness that actually meant that we were actually able to identify it as soon as it reached the country. And it's really given us a good start to keep pushing on to try and manage PSA to the best of our ability. The disease is here to stay, and really from now on it's going to be a case of keeping the orchards we've got going through a combination of good cultivars and a whole lot of good management practices as well. The thing that's really in the forefront of growers' minds right now is what is going to be the recovery pathway for the industry. One of the possibilities that's currently being looked at and is looking good at this stage is the new Zespri cultivar, the new Zespri Gold cultivar called Gold 3. And the Zespri board has just made a decision to release another round of this particular cultivar with the idea that existing Hort 16A growers will be able to swap over to Gold 3 into the future. Currently we're standing in one of the clonal blocks that Zespri has around the country. It's where the elite material that's gone through the Zespri breeding program is taken for its final evaluation. So we put 5 or 6 vines of each of the elite cultivars in here, and we actually evaluate them for all of their fruit attributes to make sure they meet all of the customer requirements that Zespri has for its program. We were right at the early stages of initial commercial release with Gold 3 when PSA struck. So what we've been able to do is to go back and look at the tolerance of Gold 3 in the PSA environment now, and at this stage it's looking like it's tolerant enough that it will be able to be managed and will be a viable cultivar hopefully going forward.
We've been very busy since PSA has first shown up in the Bay of Plenty. As you've seen, we have hundreds of vines that they are PSA resistant or tolerant, but what we need is one that fit the market as well. New Zealand has one of the largest kiwifruit germplasm collections outside China. If we don't have a PSA-resistant candidate here, I can almost guarantee you that it doesn't exist, because the number of species that we have in the collection here, the number of good quality parents that have shown already different levels of tolerance is quite large, so we know we are gonna get there. It's a question of speeding it up to ease and fasten up the opportunities for the grower.
Some of the work we've been doing is looking at the genome of a PSA itself and trying to understand exactly what's going on with the DNA and the genome of the bacteria that we're dealing with. We've been able to identify some unique parts of it which are totally different from any other bacteria in the world, and we can use that information to create molecular tools which enable us to have very, very accurate diagnostic tools. The 2 women that have been working in the lab have been taking kiwifruit canes. They've been wounding the canes and then inoculating them with PSA. What then happens is that if the kiwifruit is susceptible, the PSA will grow within that cane. And this one on this side is Hort 16A. And clearly when the bark's been cut back, you can see the browning of the spreading lesion coming away from the point where the cane's been wounded. And again on this side you can see that same spreading darkening lesion. On these other canes, obviously not Hort 16A, and a lot less PSA expression on those canes because they're far more tolerant. In the pictures you can see now, you can see PSA inside the wood of the kiwifruit vine. In this picture you can see bacteria associated with a stomata on the leaf of a kiwifruit vine. In both cases you can see that the bacteria is well inside the kiwifruit and is obviously multiplying. Some of the wood's been collected from trials where they're actually looking at different management practices, and there we're comparing the same cultivar, either Hayward or Hort 16A or Gold 3, and actually looking to see whether the different management practices result in different tolerances or susceptibilities to PSA. The information that we're gathering here is being fed back to Zespri and forms the basis of a whole lot of decision making and information that goes on to KVH and to growers.
It's been a huge learning curve for all of us, and most of the time we've focused on trying to control PSA, and to a large extent some of us have forgotten about the basics of actually carrying on with the crop that we've actually got, and so we've actually had to re-energise ourselves back and focus as much on growing an existing crop as well as learning a whole new process of managing PSA in the same time. On this particular property of ours, we had G9, Hort 16A, and we had Hayward. We're at the stage now where all the G9 is gone, all the 16A is gone, and we're now focusing on this property back on trying to maximise the Hayward as best we can, but at the same time nurturing the stumps so that they're in a position ready to graft this coming winter. We made a decision by the end of June that we should cut back to ground level with the view that we would cut to as much clean wood as we possibly could. So we went basically as low as we could, and from that point on we've been growing Bruno suckers, and in this particular vine there's 5 suckers there that have the potential to be able to graft a new variety on. So that's where we look to be grafting the G3 on. Even though these suckers are going to be hard to graft to, I think this is still going to be the best option for us rather than actually stump grafting into the stump itself. For us it's still a huge risk whether G3 is actually still going to get there, so we've still got to at least have a crack at that, because that's really the only opportunity we have in the short to medium term, apart from waiting for a new totally resistant variety that is probably 7 or 8, maybe even longer away before we can actually get going with that. It's an industry that's certainly under pressure, and I think at this stage the industry is doing its level best to actually find a pathway forward for us, not just from Zespri's point of view but from Kiwifruit Vine Health's point of view. There's been a huge amount of work go in the last 12 months, and this is probably this is definitely the most testing time this industry's ever faced. So we're and you could be critical of what's going on, but no, this is an industry that's rising to the challenge and really doing as best it possibly can.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.